It all began one ordinary afternoon when Natsakawa, the class gal with a reputation for her easygoing charm, was casually chatting with a friend while lounging in a seat that didn't belong to her. That seat, unfortunately for her, was usually occupied by Kageyama, the quiet guy known for his lunch break naps. Returning from the bathroom, Kageyama paused at the door, realizing with a twinge of annoyance that his usual retreat had been taken. He thought about just avoiding the scene altogether with a stroll down the hallway, but before he could act, Natsakawa looked up and called out to him, asking if the seat was his. Her sudden acknowledgement caught him off guard. With a brief apology she got up, letting him reclaim his spot. As Kageyama settled back into his usual napping position, whispers spread across the classroom. Some students casually identified him as, "that guy who always naps during lunch." The word stung a little. Meanwhile, Natsakawa glanced over at him with a faint blush, though he didn't seem to notice. Jealous murmurs rippled through the room. The boys speculated on how someone like Kageyama could have even spoken to Natsakawa. Some admired her kindness, others couldn't help but reduce her appeal to superficialities, debating her figure in crude detail. Kageyama, overhearing it all, quietly acknowledged how her looks had become the default topic of the classroom gossip. But Natsakawa wasn't deaf to it either. She snapped at the boys, clearly disgusted by their vulgarity. They scrambled away, thoroughly embarrassed. Kageyama watched quietly, realizing that while Natsakawa might seem kind to everyone, her kindness had limits, especially when it came to creeps. Later, as her friend tried convincing her to go bowling after school, Natsakawa declined, claiming she had work. Kageyama's phone buzzed with a message. It was from her. She asked to meet at their usual karaoke spot. He looked up. She met his gaze briefly before turning to her friend with a soft excuse. The friend teased her, suspicious of how often she was working lately, but Natsakawa brushed it off. As Kageyama anticipated the meeting, he already knew what kind of situation awaited him, because whenever they were alone at karaoke, things always escalated in a very peculiar way. The moment they entered the private room, Natsakawa moved close to him, her breath shaky, her hands resting on his shoulders. Her eyes gleamed with excitement, and Kageyama could feel the tension rise. The atmosphere was intense, and she wasted no time demanding what she'd been craving since the night before. But rather than anything scandalous, Kageyama simply pulled out a USB drive and calmly inserted it into the karaoke machine. He had composed a new track for her, a high-energy intro song perfect for underground idols. As he explained the beats and arrangement, he noticed she wasn't reacting. When he looked at her, he realized she was silently crying. Before he could panic, she reached out, grabbing his hand, her eyes lit with joy. She was overwhelmed with happiness, calling him a genius. Flustered, Kageyama tried to pull his hand back, but she wouldn't let go, teasing him for putting so much thought into her song. He tried to downplay it, but inside he wondered when she started interpreting everything so dramatically. She asked if she could try dancing to the song, and as she moved across the room in her short skirt, Kageyama tried to focus, but her energetic steps and flashing thighs made it increasingly hard to look away. The private nature of the moment, the fact that only he could watch her like this, added a whole new layer of awkward intensity. When she finished, she turned around with a blush, asking how she did. Kageyama avoided her gaze and gave a vague response, knowing that praising her would only encourage more teasing. She pouted and ordered more drinks, saying the dancing had made her sweat. They fell into a playful rhythm. Natsakawa exaggerated her praise, calling him a musical genius. When she mixed up Van Gogh and Mozart, Kageyama corrected her, amused but trying not to show it. Then her tone shifted. She spoke more seriously, explaining how she had only ever done covers and how much his support meant to her. She hugged his arm, thanking him sincerely. Kageyama froze. The softness of her body pressed against him, the sweet scent of her skin. He couldn't think straight. When he muttered something about her smell, she pulled back in alarm, worried she smelled sweaty. He blushed harder, assuring her she actually smelled nice. Embarrassed and flustered, she tried to create some distance, but in doing so she accidentally knocked over her drink, spilling it all over Kageyama's pants. Panicking, she dropped to her knees to clean it up. Kageyama, utterly red in the face, begged her to stop. He knew if she touched the wrong spot, things would escalate fast. Just then, the waitress walked in to deliver drinks, and caught a view of Natsakawa on her knees in front of him. Her wide-eyed blush said everything. Kageyama tried desperately to explain it was a misunderstanding, but the waitress quietly backed out, utterly mortified. As the door closed, Kageyama leaned back and sighed, realizing his new role as Natsakawa's personal composer was going to be anything but simple. A few days had passed since the usual school routine when Natsu, full of her usual energy, invited Kage to her house. The song they had worked on was finally complete, and now she wanted him to see the finished costume. Though Kage clearly wasn't interested, Natsu never really waited for permission. She simply told him she'd send the address later and went on her way. And so, the next scene finds Kage standing in front of her house, hesitant but already too deep to turn back. When the door opened, Natsu welcomed him in with a smile and mentioned, casually as if it was no big deal, that her mom was excited to meet him too. That bit caught Kage off guard. The idea of meeting Natsu's mom immediately sparked a mental image. Would she be a gal too? Just like her daughter? The answer came moments later. They stepped inside and sure enough her mother made her entrance, dressed in nothing but a bra and shorts, greeting him as if she'd just returned from the beach. It was exactly what Kage had feared. Her presence screamed confidence and her outfit screamed, not very traditional. He introduced himself, trying to keep things polite, but her mom had other plans. She poked his face playfully and jumped right into conversation like they were already family. Then she grabbed his hand and fired off a barrage of questions, one after another. It was overwhelming even by Natsu's standards. Thankfully, Natsu stepped in before things got too chaotic, pulling her mom back just enough for Kage to breathe again. Strangely enough, she was the calmer one here, for once. Her mom apologized, explaining that this was the first time Natsu had brought a male friend home. Kage tried to brush it off, though it was obvious he wasn't used to this level of intensity. Then the topic shifted. Apparently, Natsu and her mom had been watching an idol livestream, and they invited Kage to join. He tried to insist that he was only there to see the costume, but the energy in that house didn't leave much room for escape. Her mom chimed in again and soon enough he found himself seated on the couch. For a moment he exhaled, finally some peace. That peace didn't last long. In the blink of an eye he found himself squished right in between Natsu and her mom. Sandwiched between a hyper gal and a barely dressed woman, he looked from one to the other and realized, this wasn't the kind of relaxing he'd signed up for. Natsu, misreading the situation entirely, pointed to the TV and talked about how great the place was, saying it was impossible to relax. Not that she knew what kind of pressure Kage was under in that exact moment. But something about her excitement, the way she jumped around while talking about idols, seemed different. Like there was more behind the energy. Her mom, watching her daughter with a soft gaze, commented on how happy Rio looked lately. It wasn't always like this. She began to explain. Before Rio became an idol, things had been rough. She'd travel an hour to dance lessons and come home too exhausted to stand. She used to light up before live shows, but for a while that spark disappeared. For 6 months she struggled. The fans didn't come. The energy wasn't there. Even someone as bright as Rio had her limits. There were nights when she came home and cried. But she didn't quit. Eventually her efforts started to pay off. Her fans began to grow. And with new songs, ones written by Kage, she began to shine again. Her mom believed this was the happiest she'd ever seen her. It was a touching story, heartfelt and real. Of course, the moment was somewhat undermined by her mom still sitting there in what was basically underwear. Without warning, she smacked Kage on the back and told him to take care of Natsu. He reacted instinctively and called her auntie. Wrong move. Her smile vanished. She grabbed him by the shirt, clearly offended. Turns out, she preferred to be called by her first name, Junko. And she made that very clear, while still holding him by the collar. Just in time, Natsu reappeared and demanded to know what her mom was doing. Later in Natsu's room the mood was calmer. She asked Kage what he thought of her room. His response was vague and Natsu, noticing his awkwardness, asked if this was his first time in a girl's room. He tried to act casual, but it was obvious he didn't know where to sit or what to do. She laid across the bed casually and told him to sit wherever. He chose the floor. Safer. That's when he noticed a small vibrating device nearby and froze. For a second the room felt very adult. But Natsu, oblivious to his panic, picked it up and explained it was just a shoulder massager. She even demonstrated. Crisis averted. Then she offered him the massager and asked if he could use it on her legs. Sometimes, she said, it's just better when someone else does it. Remembering what her mom had said earlier about how hard she worked, he stood up and agreed, just the legs, nothing more. She laid down again and teased him for being unusually cooperative. He stood there with the massager in hand, staring down at a gal lying on her bed and realized, this situation looked exactly like something out of an adult manga. She warned him not to peek up her skirt. He said he wouldn't and turned the device on. As he massaged her legs, she complimented him. His hands started sweating, not from effort but from nerves. And then, it happened. The massager slipped and landed on her skirt. She jolted and let out a loud, involuntary sound, quickly covering her mouth with a blush spreading across her face. In full panic, he tried to pull the device away, but right then the door opened. Junko stepped in. She saw the scene, her daughter on the bed, Kage hovering over her with a massager, and gave a thumbs up. Her expression was full of praise, as if to say, "Nice job, kid." Kage tried to explain. She didn't listen. And from that day on, through a series of misunderstandings, awkward accidents, and emotionally charged idle conversations, Kage officially became Natsu's personal composer. Though originally this was just supposed to be about a costume. At school, with the sun already warming the windows and everyone buzzing about their plans, Natsu leaned over to Kage and casually asked if he was planning to go to the Golden Week festival. His response was flat. He hadn't really thought about it. Naturally, that wasn't enough of an answer for Natsu, who asked why. Kage muttered something about not being able to do wotajai, the coordinated cheering and dance moves hardcore idol fans pulled off like synchronized swimmers. Natsu brushed his concern aside. It was a live house event, not an underground idol battleground. Before he could protest, she handed him a ticket like it was an invitation to a casual picnic, told him she'd be waiting at the venue, and dashed off. Her final words echoed behind her. He wouldn't stand out, even if he stood there like a jaizo. That word stuck with him. Jaizo? Later, curiosity got the best of him. A quick search on Google told him Jaizo was a stone statue of a Buddhist guardian, known for standing still and looking serene. The comparison stung a little. The day arrived. Kage found himself standing outside the live house, clutching the ticket. The place was absolutely packed. He nearly choked when he heard the entrance fee was just 500 yen. That was way too little for the energy radiating from inside. Inside the venue, the crowd was buzzing with anticipation. He glanced at the time. Natsu's performance would be soon. Before he could mentally prepare himself, a girl appeared beside him and struck up a conversation. She seemed eccentric, too friendly, too confident. Definitely the talks to strangers in crowded places type. She asked if it was his first time. He admitted it was. She grinned and started sharing unsolicited wisdom, telling him not to overthink and to just feel everything with his soul. The advice felt more like something from a cult initiation than a concert. Kage labeled her as weird and tried to avoid eye contact. Still, she pried, asking which idol he was there for. When he said Natsakawa, her eyes lit up with curiosity. The follow-up questions started pouring in, but Kage had no interest in turning this into a personal interview. He shut down the conversation quickly. Soon after, the first group took the stage, and the audience exploded. Chants, cheers, perfectly timed moves. The whole room seemed to move as one. So this was what Natsu meant when she talked about unity. The same eccentric girl beside him gave him an impromptu explanation. The music, the idols, the fans, the calls. Everything synchronized to create a groove that filled the entire venue like a living wave. It was more than a performance, it was a collective experience. Kage observed it all quietly. Everyone looked like they were genuinely having fun. Still, yelling idol names in sync with strangers felt embarrassing. Then Natsu stepped onto the stage. The girl beside him practically screamed her name with unfiltered joy. Natsu? She stood confidently, introducing herself to the crowd before announcing she'd be performing her original song, for the first time. The moment the music started, the crowd watched with anticipation. The choreography, crafted by Natsu in just one night, moved in perfect rhythm with Kage's composition. Every beat, every move fit together like puzzle pieces. Kage scanned the audience. They were into it, smiling, swaying, but not like before. No calls, no chants. Just quiet awe. It was probably because the song was new. The crowd didn't know where to jump in, where to yell, how to hype. That bothered him more than he expected. He closed his eyes, clenched his fists, and did something completely uncharacteristic. He shouted her name. Loud. Clear. Heads turned. And then others followed. One voice sparked a dozen more, and soon the venue echoed with fans chanting for Natsakawa. Her eyes lit up, and she glanced toward the direction of the voice that had started it all. Kage continued calling her name, and she responded with a performance that felt like it had just leveled up. By the time she finished, she looked out over the crowd, her eyes meeting his for a brief, wordless moment. It was done. Leaving the venue later, Kage walked alone, reflecting. Maybe it had been fun after all. Before he could get too lost in thought, Natsu caught up to him and hugged him from behind, playfully clinging to his back. She told him to wait up, teasing him with a new nickname, Call Master. Apparently, his impromptu cheering had left an impression. He tried to deflect it. He just got annoyed that his song wasn't getting the hype it deserved. She teased him more. Maybe he was being at tsundere? Wasn't it embarrassing? He begged her not to say that out loud, but the damage was already done. She asked how the show was. He muttered that it was, alright. Pretty hyped. She grinned. That response was creepier than anything she'd expected, but in a charming kind of way. Then she noticed something. Her hair accessory was still pinned to her costume. He pointed it out, asking if that was okay. She looked at it for a second and smiled. Look cute, she said. And just like that, the Golden Week Festival became another piece in the mosaic of their strange, chaotic, slow-burning bond, where tsundere pride clashed with gal energy, and idol music brought everything just a little closer together. Hey, don't forget to like, subscribe and share this video with your friends, and also with your calculator, your fridge, your grandma's smart TV, whatever's connected to Wi-Fi. Help me hit 1,000 subs. The day after the visit to Natsu's house, the scene opens on Kage standing under the sun, broom in hand, cleaning an empty pool. He wasn't happy about it. Not even a little. Grumbling to himself, he wondered why he was stuck doing this alone. 3 hours earlier it all made sense. Back in class, during a particularly boring lecture, Kage had dozed off. The teacher, ever watchful and way too energetic for that hour of the day, caught him mid-dream. As punishment, Kage found himself sentenced to a classic after-school job. Pool cleaning. And now, under the heat, surrounded by silence and concrete, he stared at the drained pool. Its vast emptiness reminded him of something. The live house. The energy, the lights, the unity. It had been fun, surprisingly fun. And now it was quiet again. He figured he wouldn't see Natsu until the next live performance, whenever that might be. Gripping the broom, he muttered to himself with a tired scowl. What was he even doing here? Alone? Or so he thought. A voice called out from above, cheerful and familiar. Natsu stood at the edge of the pool, arms crossed, eyes bright. Apparently, she had also fallen asleep in class and had earned the same fate. So now, pool cleaning was a duo activity. She slipped down into the pool with practiced ease as if this was something they did all the time. Seeing her eager to clean, Kage noticed something different about her. She looked more reliable. Maybe it was the afterglow of the live show. Maybe she was just evolving. But 1 hour later, all that reliability was shouting in frustration. The pool still looked untouched and Natsu had hit her limit. She groaned, dramatically dragging her feet, asking what they should do next. That's when her eyes landed on a nearby water pipe, and the mischief practically sparked in her smile. Without hesitation she grabbed the hose. Kage didn't even need to hear the words. He knew exactly where this was going. And he was right. In seconds, a blast of water soaked him from head to toe. Battle mode activated. With a straight face, he picked up the nearest bucket of water and launched it back at her, full force. Natsu was drenched. Not one to back down, she retaliated immediately. Water splashed everywhere, bouncing off concrete, hair, uniforms. Within seconds, the punishment had turned into an all-out water war. And then, of course, came the witness. Nanako happened to pass by the pool just in time to see her two friends in the middle of what looked like chaos. What uniforms, laughing, slipping, it was hard to tell if this was cleaning or some strange club activity. Natsu, catching her breath, turned to Kage and suggested they might need to head home before things got worse. He took a step forward, and his foot found a slippery patch. In the next moment, gravity took over, and Natsu landed directly on top of him. There was a pause. Awkward. Close. Eyes wide. Natsu scrambled up and asked if he was okay, teasing him about being unexpectedly bold. Then, without much shame at all, she flapped the edge of her skirt, announcing that she was soaked all the way to her underwear. Kage froze. His brain stalled. She repeated it, louder, as if clarity was key. Yes, even her underwear. He responded flatly that, yes, he could hear her just fine, thank you very much. Nanako, still observing from a distance with all the energy of a tired older sister, finally stepped in. She asked what exactly they were doing down there. Natsu casually explained they were cleaning. Nanako, unimpressed, pointed out that the entire back half of the pool hadn't even been touched. Then calmly she added that Natsu's clothes were practically see-through and she should hurry up and change or she'd catch a cold. Natsu huffed and told Nanako she sounded like a mom. Meanwhile, Kage decided that maybe it was time to go home too. Later, after Natsu had changed and they exchanged their goodbyes, the pool was quiet again. Kage returned to the classroom to change as well, peeling off his wet uniform. That's when he noticed. His underwear was soaked too. He paused. Blinked. Wait. If his underwear was soaked back then? His eyes widened as realization struck like lightning. Did that mean Natsu was also going commando? If you enjoyed diving into this manga with me, don't forget to smash that like button. It helps more than you know. The scene opens with Kage sitting on the sand, staring out at the shimmering sea. His expression is a mix of confusion and disbelief. Why is he even here? Before he can figure it out, a familiar voice calls his name. Natsu's enthusiastic call brings him back to reality. She's there, with Nanako, both emerging from the changing rooms in their bikinis. Kage finds his gaze darting away in a rush, wondering where he's supposed to look. Natsu tilts her head, noticing his nervousness, and boldly strikes a few poses. She teases him, stating that there's nothing to be ashamed of, everyone's wearing swimsuits today. Kage meanwhile stammers that's not really the point. Nanako crosses her arms, eyebrows furrowing, and asks Natsu why Kage is even there with them. Natsu casually explains that she invited him as a sort of bodyguard, someone to fend off unwanted attention. Nanako lets out a dramatic sigh, noting there are plenty of more decent people for that. Kage glances at both their figures and quietly thinks to himself, setting aside Natsu, there's really nobody who'd be bold enough to approach Nanako. His expression almost slips, and Nanako, sensitive to danger, asks if he said something. Her fist tightens. Natsu quickly eases the tension, much to Kage's relief as he quietly considers whether he should just go home. Nanako starts ordering him to carry the basket and set up their spot. Kage dutifully obeys. Once the small tent is up, it's barely big enough for a single person, and Natsu boldly climbs in, asking Kage to apply sunscreen. His cheeks grow red as he stutters, "Me?" But in the end, a pair of hands, Nanako's, emerge to do the rubbing instead. Kage lets out a silent sigh of relief. He finds a small air float and quietly ponders whether it's okay for him to be there, just a few feet away. Natsu and Nanako grab their own float rings and rush toward the water. Kage decides he'll remain safely in the shade, until Natsu suddenly grabs his hand, tugging him toward the waves. In the water, Kage finds himself trailing a few paces behind. Nanako glances back and says, "Don't stare at me." Kage reluctantly insists he's not. After a moment of fun, Natsu feels thirsty, and the two make their way back toward the shore while Nanako heads to the restroom. Walking side by side with Natsu, Kage starts to notice the glances from nearby guys, the way their eyes linger on Natsu, and it stirs up something he hadn't quite expected. They're probably thinking I'm not good enough for her? He quietly reflects. He then realizes two guys are staring, trying to identify Natsu, wondering if she's someone famous. Kage signals this to Natsu and their panic sets in. Without thinking, he grabs her hand, and together they dart away to avoid further commotion. The two barely make it back to their small refuge, the little tent, where Kage finds himself flat on his back with Natsu sprawled on top of him. His pulse races. What kind of situation is this? Natsu, blushing, worries aloud about what to do if those guys know their identities. Kage finds their worries completely misplaced. There are much more confusing problems at hand. His grip inadvertently falls on her, his hand resting against her side, while Natsu's is pressed against his stomach. Between the softness, the warmth, and the floatai wedged against him, he finds he can't move. He asks Natsu to check if the guys are still nearby, thinking it might ease their worries, or his own. But instead, when he opens his eyes, he finds Natsu turning to look outside, putting her rear directly in his view. Natsu announces quietly with a nervous blush that the guys are still there. Kage reluctantly realizes the previous, less hectic position might have been much better, especially as he feels his own body reacting in a way he can't control. At that moment, Nanako suddenly opens the tent's flap, eyebrows furrowing, wondering what exactly they're up to. Kage, with nervous drops of sweat, stammers an explanation, but Nanako cuts him off, stating boldly that she already dealt with those guys. Kage finds himself thinking. Then what was the point of him even being there? As the two emerge from the tent, Nanako asks where her drink is. Natsu quietly admits that there hadn't been time to get it, much to Nanako's disbelief, and then Nanako crosses her arms and asks just what they were actually up to in there. The sunset glows warmly through the glass of the karaoke room, casting a rich orange aura over the two. Natsu tilts her head, closing her eyes as Kage's song plays, pure happiness blooming in her expression. Natsu lets a delighted sigh escape, thinking to herself that she hadn't noticed he could make something this cute. Across from her, Kage puffs up just a bit, trying to mask his nervousness with confidence. After all, he does have many talents. Natsu tilts forward, eyebrows arching mischievously, wondering about the lyrics she wrote this time. Kage reluctantly glances down at the sheet. His expression drops, pure disbelief. They kind of feel elementary school-like. Natsu's cheeks rush up in color, a dramatic blend of embarrassment and indignation. So cruel. He scratches his head, wrestling with the eternal problem. This time they decided to make it cute, but what can be done? Natsu crosses her arms in deep thought. Then suddenly her face glows. She's got a really good plan, just leave it to her. Sometime later, the two find themselves in front of a frilly cafe. Kage tilts his head reluctantly. Here. Natsu boldly nods. If cuteness is what they're after, this is the place. The moment they step in, a chorus rings through the cafe, "Welcome, master." And there stands a familiar face, the weird girl from their live show event, now wearing a frilly Maid outfit. Kage stiffens, he remembers. Natsu casually waves, the weird girl's eyes glimmering in recognition. Oh, the guy who loves girls, Kage internally screams. Wait, that's a terrible way to describe me. The weird girl tilts her head. Are they a couple? She drops her voice to a dramatic whisper. Don't worry, her lips are tighter than a plush toy. Wait, which lips is she talking about? Kage lets out a nervous laugh, a huge misunderstanding, while Natsu pouts, eyebrows furrowing in disbelief. The two seem really close. Is Kage a regular here? The weird maid crosses her arms smugly, declaring that they're otaku buddies. Kage drops his face into his hands. Please, spare him from further embarrassment. He finds a seat, reluctantly, while Natsu slips away to the changing room. Shortly after, Natsu emerges in a frilly Maid outfit, pure cuteness personified, tilting her head cutely. Kage asks quietly why a maid's uniform, to which Natsu just drops a mischievous hint. The two decided to serve him a full-course meal as maids, to aid in Natsu's quest for cuteness in her song's lyrics. The weird girl starts crying tears of happiness. It's a dream come true serving her idol. Natsu gracefully prepares a plate with a fluffy omelette. She focuses, forms a heart with her hands and casts a magic spell. Kyun. The weird girl practically melts with happiness. Kage stands there petrified, wondering what the fuck he's gotten into. The weird girl signals there's more to come. Natsu brings a spoon toward him, filled to the brim with affection, asking him to enjoy this meal made with pure love. The weird girl cheers. That's the spirit. Natsu boldly strikes a pose and lets her magic flow into his drink, a pure shower of love. Kage is rendered a silent statue. He reluctantly tasted the omelette. Surprisingly, it's pretty good. The weird girl leans in and whispered something. It's all thanks to magic, and Kage finds his pulse accelerate. Is she reading his mind? After their meal, the weird girl claps her hands. Now it's time for the final stretch, a photo shoot with his maids in a private room. Kage asks quietly, isn't this kind of an erotic shop? Inside, Natsu gracefully poses in various cute stances while Kage reluctantly photographs her. His pulse growing faster with each shutter click. Natsu glances back with a mischievous spark. Should he be more enthusiastic? Will her skirt be fine? Natsu casually lifts a corner, a moment that almost shows what's underneath, adding that it's fine, there's something there. Kage finds his pulse skyrocketing. Maybe it's those show panties they wear? After nearly 10 photos, Natsu exits to change back into her own clothes. The weird girl tilts her head. How was it? Natsu glows warmly, it was really fun. Kage glances down at the 4,000 yen bill reluctantly, wondering if he's supposed to pay, but the weird girl waves it away, stating it's covered. She got to work with her idol today. Is that really okay? Then someone calls for the weird girl, manager. And Kage realizes, wait, she's the fucking manager? The two say their goodbyes and walk side by side down the bustling city streets. Natsu tilts her phone toward him, a gallery filled with photos from their photo shoot. Natsu lets a delighted giggle escape, they turned out really cute. How's her maid style? Kage crosses his arms and reluctantly turns his face away. It wasn't that cute. Natsu pouts, that's so mean? Then Kage quietly adds under his breath that he prefers her, the way she normally is. Natsu's cheeks grow rosy, and with a mischievous glimmer in her eye, she teases him. Summer had come and gone with nothing but melodies to show for it. Kage had spent every free hour crafting music, fingers dancing across keys with the screen off like it was second nature. They said geniuses worked in silence, but Kage? He worked in darkness too. Just as he leaned back from finishing another track, his phone buzzed. It was Natsu. Her message was short and sweet. Another new song meant another performance. This time she wanted him in the crowd again. And honestly, after days locked in his own sonic bubble, the idea of unwinding didn't sound too bad. And so, under the dim, color-drenched lights of the live house, Kage found himself once again blending into the audience. His gaze flicked to the slate by the stage entrance. Multiple names? Not a solo set. He chuckled silently. Natsu's been leveling up, but a full-on event? Wasn't that a bit much? Before the thought could finish brewing, a familiar chaotic energy burst onto the scene. The weird girl from before, the one with volume issues and no concept of personal space, shouted her way into his field of hearing. Apparently she remembered everything. She hollered something about how cute Natsu looked during her last performance, loud enough to echo off the walls. The girl seated beside Kage threw him a dagger-eyed glare, and in an instinctive act of self-preservation, he offered a polite, silent apology. Not that he had any clue what he was sorry for. Then the lights shifted. The stage bathed in a soft pink glow. Natsu stepped forward, mic in hand, posture confident. Kage smirked. That intro of hers, it had practically become her signature line by now. Like a catchphrase in a sitcom, and the audience? They ate it up every time. She began to sing and the room changed. The weird girl nudged Kage, asking if he wasn't joining the call-and response this time. Was he trying to act like a secret boyfriend in the shadows? He almost choked. Boyfriend? That was not the idea, right? The beat dropped. The crowd lit up. Natsu struck a pose mid-performance and the place roared. Even the girl beside Kage, moments ago an ice queen, looked absolutely dazzled. Pride bubbled in Kage's chest. This was the reaction she deserved. And his music had helped get her there. Once the set ended, backstage in the private room, Natsu was already glowing with excitement. Talk swirled about how well the crowd received the new song, about the energy, the calls, the dancing, until a knock interrupted them. The door opened. And in walked her. That same girl from earlier, dagger eyes, aisle seat. But now more composed. Her name? Mimoka. And Natsu? She knew her. Another singer, apparently. Without missing a beat, Mimoka asked the kind of question that instantly made rooms go quiet. Is he your boyfriend? Natsu handled it coolly, composer not boyfriend. Still, a call whisked her away and suddenly the air thickened. Just Kage and Mimoka. Alone. Silence. Kage awkwardly stepped back about to leave, until Mimoka grabbed his hand. Wait, what? She asked if he really composed that song. He nodded. Then came her next request. Write one for her too. She even offered to pay. He casually mentioned he'd made Natsu's song for free. Her eyes widened like she just witnessed a war crime. Phenomenal music? For free? Was he insane? And just when Kage thought it couldn't get weirder, she asked if he had a crush on that busty girl. Kage's brain flatlined. Busty? That was her take? Mimoka muttered something under her breath, something about the song being wasted on a girl whose only charm was her chest. Then, in one swift motion, grabbed his hand and placed it on her own boob. The room froze. Kage's soul briefly left his body. Blushing, Mimoka asked again, voice softer now, would he make a song for her too? Kage's thoughts spiraled into chaos. What in all that is sacred? Mimoka, meanwhile, smugly assumed that men always gave in after the sacred grail of boob contact. Kage gently but firmly removed his hand. He said he couldn't help her, not when they barely knew each other. That stunned her. He said no. Even after that? Could it be, men weren't just about breasts? That they wanted something deeper? She was almost having an existential crisis when she made her next move. With zero hesitation and full commitment to madness, she began removing her clothes. Then came her declaration. Getting to know each other was the problem. They could fix that. Right. No. Red-faced and wide-eyed, Kage stood frozen in the private room of the live house, staring at the absolute chaos that was Mimoka, in nothing but her bra and panties. What kind of cursed event flag had he just triggered? His thoughts raced in slow motion. What is this perverted woman even doing? If Natsu ever walked in, it wouldn't just be misunderstandings, his chastity would be toast. At this rate, he wouldn't even survive to write another melody. Emergency escape initiated. Kage turned and ran. Not gracefully. Not heroically. Just raw, panicked retreat. Behind him, Mimoka called out, still blushing, muttering that if he ran away like this, it would just make her look like the pervert. Then she sighed, seduction, officially a failed mission. By the time Kage stumbled back into the crowd, he blended into the noise like he'd never left. The weird girl, loud as ever, spotted him instantly. Where had he been? Kage coolly deflected with the classic dodge, bathroom break. The lights dimmed again and the final performance began. Kage's eyes drifted to the stage and there she was. Mimoka. Dressed in glitter, confidence, and absolutely no shame, belting out the opening verse like she owned the place. The crowd? They were eating it up, chanting her name like it was a sacred mantra. Kage stared awestruck. So she was the finale act. And honestly, the excitement was even thicker than during Natsu's set. There was something commanding about her presence. Her voice, her movement, that polished pop star charisma. If you didn't count the whole stripping fiasco, she was kind of incredible. Later, sprawled out on his floor, Kage tried to wrap his brain around everything. Why do I keep getting involved with weird women? But before he could return to the comfort of composition, his doorbell rang. Delivery? He opened it regrettably. Mimoka. Cheerful. Uninvited. Possibly dangerous. With perfect confidence she chirped, I came. The door immediately closed again. Kage's voice filtered through the wood, I'm good thanks. Mimoka wedged herself in the doorframe like a crowbar with heels. Why are you closing the door? Because you're being scary, Kage deadpanned. And seriously, how did she find his place? Apparently she had this convenient little thing for tracking lost items. It was meant to sound casual, but it landed like a GPS-enabled threat. Normally you're supposed to be the one who's lost, Kage muttered. Too late. She was already inside, shoes off, taking in his studio bedroom hybrid like it was an exhibit. This really feels like a boy's room, she said, poking around, tapping his speakers and peeking at his setups. Kage watched, wary. Okay, she's in my room now. But please don't strip again. Then her eyes lit up. A vintage No Girls CD from the Platinum era. She snatched it up with reverence. Kage blinked. She was a No Girl fan too? Just like that, the vibe shifted. From seductive chaos to musical kinship. Maybe she wasn't that bad after all. As their shared love for retro idol groups warmed the air, Kage finally asked the question that mattered. Why do you want my music? She sat on his bed, the light catching her in a surprisingly honest stillness. Then came her answer. I fell in love at first sight. Kage's cheeks lit up like stage lights. With me? Mimoka nearly choked. No way in hell. Like I'd fall for you. Then, playing with her hair, red-faced, she amended, I fell in love with your music, okay? She said his song had drawn her in, like a cleansing wind. Like something that could let her shine her brightest. She needed it. Kage closed his eyes. That was a lot. But kind of flattering. Then she stood, walked closer and gently took his hand. Please. Make a song for me too. Kage hesitated. He had more than enough songs in the vault. But what would Natsu think? Would she feel betrayed? Still, Momoka's next word struck something in him. His music shouldn't stay in the shadows. And she had the potential. He'd seen it on stage. Fine. One song. She practically exploded with joy, asking what changed his mind. He answered honestly, your performance. The song you had didn't quite fit. If it were me, I'd write something different. She froze. Then blushed. You watched that closely? She looked down, quietly grateful. Kage, now regaining his usual tone, added dryly, but seriously. No more stripping. Mimoka sighed, almost bashful for once. Yeah. I won't do that anymore. Hey everyone. I'm just 400 subscribers away from hitting my 1000 subs goal. Your support means the world. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and help me reach this milestone. In the afternoon heat of the classroom, Kage lay across his desk like a tragic figure in a melodrama. His mind, however, was anything but quiet. I'm not sure what I'll say at the meeting today. I still haven't even touched Natsakawa's stuff, and I haven't finished a single inch of my summer homework either. His hand gripped his scalp. Despair mounted. And then he shouted. Like a man on the edge, his cry shattered the atmosphere, drawing startled looks from the entire class. Naturally, Natsu and Nanako noticed immediately. Natsu blinked, concerned. What's with him? Nanako, sipping juice like this was just another Tuesday, replied, Hasn't he always been like this? Natsu gave her a deadpan look. No way. Meanwhile, Kage was spiraling. Wait. I just ended summer break without explaining anything to Natsakawa, and now I'm pretending like everything's fine. Before his brain could set itself on fire, Natsu called out to him. He brushed it off. It's nothing. But her sharp eyes weren't buying it. After school, Kage pulled the ultimate escape move. He bailed on cleaning duty and vanished. Suspicious, Natsu stood with her mop in hand, raising a brow. This is sketchy. Super sketchy. Her eyes gleamed. I've always wanted to play detective. Nanako, who'd seen enough shoujo dramas to know where this was going, sighed. Are you a kid? Cue stakeout mode. They followed him through the streets, trailing from behind until he entered a family restaurant. Cozy, casual, and not prepared for the scandal about to unfold. Their jaws dropped. Mimoka, the idol, sitting across from Kage, in civilian clothes, and smiling. From behind a fake menu wall, Natsu and Nanako eavesdropped while trying not to inhale too loudly. Nanako slipped off to grab drinks. Natsu stayed glued to the sound of danger. Mimoka started casually. Sorry about last time. I kinda just barged into your house. Natsu nearly fell out of her seat. House? What house? Her head dropped into her hands. What the actual hell happened over summer break? And then, the nuclear line. Kage very casually, I mean that's fine and all, but you suddenly started stripping. That was way more concerning. Natsu's mouth dropped open. Her heart might have flatlined. Mimoka, flustered and pink, how many times are you gonna bring that up? I couldn't help it. I just really wanted it fast. Natsu's head tilted. Wanted? Fast? That means what I think it means, right? Then Kage leaned in. What's next? There are things I want to try. Wanna come to my place? Mimoka replied. Yeah. I want to move on to the next step already. Natsu flushed red. This is way too bold for a family restaurant. Then, as if fate was just showing off, Kage added, bring a few stage outfits too. Mimoka, yeah, got it. That image seared itself into Natsu's mind. Mimoka in idol costume laying on a bed. He's gonna make her wear them. Kage, let's do it tomorrow. Mimoka, sure. Natsu stood up with fire in her chest, whipped off her cap like a superhero about to announce justice, and marched to their table. That's a no-go. Both Kage and Mimoka blinked in unison. Huh. Natsu, face burning, using stage outfits for something dirty is just wrong. Mimoka stared. You're not making any sense. Are you misunderstanding something? Natsu, confused now. Huh? A few explanations later, the fog cleared. Apparently, shock of all shocks, Kage was just composing a song for Mimoka. Kage sighed, shoulders low. So much for keeping it low-key. Natsu puffed her cheeks. You should have told me first. Kage blinked. Why? Natsu replied, don't you get it? Nanako finally returned to the table with her drink, squinting at the standoff. When did this become a thing? Natsu folded her arms. We've been working on music together. If he gets busy, that's a problem for me too. Kage, mentally checking if this counted as jealousy, found no answer. But the next moment? Chaos. Mimoka crossed her arms. Kage has business with me. Why are you even here, you damn stalker? Nanako nearly choked on her straw. This just escalated? Natsu replied, I have a connection with Kage too. We've worked hard together. Mimoka, and because you're so bad at your job, I took him from you. Nanako deadpan, you can't just measure musical collabs like dating points. Natsu shot back, Mimoka has skill, sure, but I'm doing my best too. Nanako blinked. Do they even realize what they're fighting about anymore? Kage, desperate for peace, raised his hands. Let's all calm down. Stay out of this, they yelled in sync. Kage backed away in defeat. I want to go home. Nanako sighed. Guys are so useless at times like this. And then she saw it, Kage, slowly tiptoeing away from the battlefield like a retreating villain. That was it. She narrowed her eyes. Her hand tightened around her cold roux afsa. In one smooth motion, she launched it across the restaurant. Direct hit. Kage was drenched. Rose-tinted justice soaked into his shirt. He blinked, stunned. What was that? Nanako made a peace sign, proud and unbothered. I just delivered divine punishment to a shameless cheater. Think about what you did. Natsu gasped. Nanako, what are you doing? Later, at a calmer hour, Natsu explained the whole situation to Nanako, properly this time. Nanako scratched her head. Yeah, there's no way someone like Kage could pull two timing. Then she turned to the soaked, silently suffering composer. My bad. Kage, still dripping, sighed. Summer was over. But the real drama? It was just getting started. If you're about to like this video, why not subscribe too? It really helps me reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers.